What's going on, everybody? It's your guy Will Cotchery once again with another episode of the Sports Binge. It's a pleasure for you guys to join me tonight. It's really 1:12 in the morning here where I'm at. But yeah, wherever you may be watching, so it's a pleasure to have you. Just now I know I've been off the grid for a few months. Just after a promising summer for me, but I just really had to come and make this video because I feel like I wasn't going to make another video till January or February, but this couldn't wait. So as a lot of NFL uh, fans know that the NFL celebrated its 100th anniversary, a century worth of pro football, the best league and the best pro league ever in sports. Just celebrating this the decorated, illustrious history of a beautiful game that we all would love and enjoy. And they've also, as the last week, month and a half, the league has released its all-time team from each position week to week every Friday night. And we just, as of today, just on Friday, they just released the last final segment of that all-time team, which is the quarterbacks. Obviously, most iconic position in sports. So, and I was really, really, I don't say dreading, but I wasn't too thrilled for this day to come. As you could see behind me, I'm a Saints fan, so and the Saints quarterback is Drew Brees, and I just wasn't really feeling this day is coming because I wasn't going to be surprised if he was snubbed, but nonetheless, it came out that he was left off the all-time team, and the way I found out was they didn't even announce all the quarterbacks because they had announced Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Joe Montana. I was just waiting just to see if they was going to get listed. He was going to get listed, Drew Brees, and it wasn't until Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, the Twitter account, he posted an article that both Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers were omitted from the list, which which obviously I don't agree with by any stretch of the imagination. Because I think just from one account, just a quick aside with Aaron Rodgers, he's the most talented quarterback to ever play the sport. And it's just what he does. Just he can make every throw. He's so accurate with the football. Just such a dynamic playmaker, especially in his prime. I know it doesn't show necessarily reflected this season in particular, but just over the totality of his career, it's just it was hard for me to see him getting left off as well. So I just want to throw that out there real quick. And then like looking back on it, because when you have players, former coaches, general managers, other and just the media abroad, they want to make it all inclusive with the last 10 decades, which is, I guess, for the sake of being unbiased, I understand, because it's a rich history, it's in-depth history. But some guys were just the guys that were left off this whole all-time team was just egregious. Just even before the quarterbacks, you have Terrell Owens, who was omitted from the list, and the thing is, a lot of people talked about, they didn't like his attitude and whatever the case, he rubbed people the wrong way. But the guy is a Mount Rushmore wide receiver. Just look at the numbers. He as far as like the three major categories for wide receivers, like receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. He leads Randy Moss in two of the three categories, which is receptions and receiving yards. Randy Moss hasn't been touchdowns, but nonetheless, Terrell Owens should have been on that list. I remember, I think if I can recall, Troy Polamalu was left off at safety. Champ Bailey was left off at corner, and especially in the tight end spot, we have both Shannon Sharp, Antonio Gates, and Jason Witten all left off for Rob Gronkowski, and people who follow me, they know how I feel about Rob Gronkowski. I think he's the most talented to ever play the tight end position, of course, but as far as I think he's considerably overrated and overvalued from an all-time standpoint at his position. But just to go back to the quarterback, I can see I can see some of the argument for Aaron Rodgers because he didn't have an extended career because he started as a backup to Brett Favre. So from that aspect, you can understand. But as far as Drew Brees, nah, it is at some point it gets funny because, And like a lot of people will argue, well, you were saying Spanish is about sour grapes, and not necessarily. I want to support my favorite players, favorite team, but sometimes it's just blatant. The blatant disrespect from the national media is at this point really is just so comical to me. I think you have a guy who leads every statistical category. Just look at Wikipedia. Look at Wikipedia. Just leads every statistical category for that quarterback. And we're not talking about like just deep in-depth analytics. We talk about just the basic passing yards, just pass touchdowns just this year, passing yards just last year. Um, NFL records galore, 5,000 yard season. He set the complete single season completion yards percentage several times in his career, and it is 13-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All Pro. The guy who's the statistical leader, he cannot be omitted from this list. It's utterly ridiculous. I mean, and what does he have to do? I would say get the ring, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But what is my thing is what is the beef? What is the beef with the national media has with Drew Brees is, and there's a lot of things that I've heard over the years. Well, he doesn't have the postseason success, and he doesn't have the rings, the MVPs, and it's just remarkable to me, honestly. And another one of the biggest things that I see against that every national analyst at the national outlet makes up against Drew Brees as well. Oh, well, he unlike Brett Favre and everyone, they played in the frozen tundra. Unlike Tom Brady, he played up north in Foxborough. Drew Brees played in the dome in the solid confines of a dome indoors. Now, now, this if in from a basic standpoint, it does play a somewhat of a factor, but I don't think a lot of people notice how lazy they don't realize how lazy of a narrative that really is. Because another guy who made the list, Peyton Manning, he played 14 out of 18 NFL seasons indoors. Now you can say Lucas Oil Stadium was an open roof, retractable roof, whatever the case may be. RCA indoors, same difference. And it's a lazy narrative because the New Orleans, and I say it's lazy because the New Orleans Saints franchise, their first NFL season was 1967. They didn't move to the Superdome until 1975. And Drew Brees came to the franchise in 2006. So from 1975 to 2005, so 30 years, 31 seasons, they played in the same building as Drew Brees is playing in right now. And in that 30-year stretch, one playoff victory. And that wasn't until 2000. 2000. The franchise started playing football in 1967. Got the first the first and at that time only playoff victory in franchise history, 2000. So they were in their 34th season. Drew Brees gets there in 2016. First season takes him to the NFC Championship game. The first in franchise history. Which would be their first of 3 NFC Championship appearances. The franchise currently has 9 playoff wins to its name. 8 of those are at the hands of Drew Brees. 8 out of 9. Like going back to the dome thing, going back, they had the same, like they played in the same building for 40 years. Over 40 years, y'all. He played in the same building. But when we talk about Drew, we use that against him. Do you know who else plays? And this is what they also say. Well, Drew not only plays in the dome, he plays in the dome 8 games a year, so 6 division games, and just stuff like that. Who also had that same exact advantage? Matthew Stafford. He plays all his eight. He plays 8 home games at. He plays 8 of his games at home, inside Ford Field, an indoor environment. Not to mention they go to Minnesota twice, like just once a year, for their road divisional game against the Vikings. So he has the same advantage as Drew Brees, if you want to call it an advantage truly, but doesn't have nearly the same success. And this is a guy who had Calvin Johnson on his roster, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, despite his shortened career. Now, Michael Thomas has been unbelievable in the start of his career, but I don't know too many people who would pick Michael Thomas over prime Megatron. I just don't. Matthew Stafford had that big body receiver, that cheat code to his disposal. Drew Brees didn't. In fact, Michael Thomas is the only Pro Bowl receiver that Drew Brees has ever had. So it's wild to me. And of course, you have fans. There's a lot of fans across the country that say the same thing. So, for example, one of the tweets that I saw was, as far as comparing Aaron Rodgers to Drew Brees, a lot of people say they would prefer Aaron Rodgers because he was the better player, which I don't agree with personally, but nonetheless, that's what is being said. So the guy said, Rodgers has more MVPs, more NFC Championship game appearances, and has to play in northern Wisconsin outdoors while Brees plays in the dome. So one thing when I look at online, we all have our differing opinions, of course. But if you're gonna come and speak your piece, at least do your research. So I had to correct him. I broke it down in 3 steps. I told him, number 1, regular season MVPs in NFL and the NBA are historically awarded to teams with the best record. And that's another video I'm gonna do in another day, I promise you. Number 2, Brees and Rodgers each have 3 NFC Championship game appearances. As I said earlier, they both been to 3, nothing more, nothing less. And like I said, another thing I said earlier, Peyton played 14 out of 18 of his seasons in the dome. So, everybody wants to nitpick about Drew Brees for some reason. I just don't understand why. Here's another thing I saw. So Stanford Red, who's on ESPN, famous personality on ESPN. So he was conversating with some fans or some NFL fans. And there's a guy, and the guy said, he told Stanford Red, you got to take the totality of the careers, including the playoffs. They got it right. Tom Brady is the all-time leader in every category when playoffs are included. Those other 2 are definitely top 20 all time, but combined they have 2 rings. They're both great. Come on, man. So basically he was really comparing Tom Brady to Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. I responded to the guy. I said, well, I mean, Willie McGinnis, who's a teammate of Tom Brady, is the all-time leader in postseason sacks. So I was being jokingly, of course. I said that makes him better than Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor. So I mean, me being a Kobe Bryant fan, I totally understand about the ring counts and whatnot. But when you look at, but the thing about basketball is that you have to understand, it's being that basketball is a two-way sport. The players, especially the star players, they have control over the game. They have more control over the outcomes of games, and then of course they don't have nearly the same injury woes and concerns that the NFL does. NFL is the ultimate team sport for a reason. There's so many factors that play in. So even though quarterbacks control most of the game compared to the other positions, they still need help regardless. And Drew Brees, like a lot of those other quarterbacks, did not have consistently great defense. Now, granted, Rodgers didn't have some either, but if you break it down, Drew Brees' defense were historically poor during when he was throwing for 5,000-yard seasons, but the team only finished 7-9 all those 3 straight years. Defense was just pathetic, and it's so unfortunate because I've said numerous times in the past that 2014 or 2016 stretch really hurt his legacy, because if he would have had a 10+ win record one of those years, I think you looked at slightly differently. But like I said, everybody is going to have their own opinions to say, which is unfortunate. And just a quick aside, guys, like as far as the who made the list. Tom, of course, Tom Brady, the greatest player in NFL history, in my opinion, the GOAT. That's a given. Joe Montana, who for about a 2.5 decade stretch was the GOAT quarterback until Tom Brady matched the Super Bowl rings, and especially won his fifth and sixth. So that's no surprise there. Peyton Manning, greatest regular season quarterback of all time, greatest quarterback as far as pre-snap. I don't think nobody was better. 14-time Pro Bowler, 5-time MVP. That's a given. Brett Favre, of course, the most durable player to ever play the position. Statistical leader for numerous categories for many years. And just off the cuff, I want to say had Johnny Unitas, Sammy Baugh. So that's four. Johnny Unitas, Sammy Baugh, and like a few other guys. And really, just here's the full list: Sammy Baugh, Tom Brady. So just for people who don't know the full list, we have so the rest of the names. So along with Tom and Peyton and Joe Montana and Brett Favre, we have Sammy Baugh, we have Otto Graham, Dan Marino, Roger Staubach, and Johnny Unitas. So those are all iconic quarterbacks, of course. So that's, you know, obviously I understand they had that great contributions while they were playing. My issue with another issue that I have with Drew Brees being omitted was you guys have guys like Sammy Baugh and Otto Graham who weren't even full-time quarterbacks, even though they're most notably played that position. They had and it's funny, they had one of the NFL accounts had they listed, I think it was Sammy Baugh's his resume. It was talking about him leading like like a defensive category. What does that have to do with quarterback? See, that's the issue I like when they nitpick it like that. That's was utterly ridiculous. Like I said before. Same thing with Otto Graham. You just talked about, well, he had the rushing yards. Like we're talking about the quarterback, historically a passing position. Like why are these other categories being mentioned? That's beyond me. But like I said, I had to come on and share this with you guys because I'm gonna go more in detail more so like as of several weeks come by, because I just wanted to drop in real quick. But like I said, it's ridiculous at this point. You just gotta laugh at it, you know. But yeah, like I said, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for coming and stopping by. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And this guy once again, Will Cotchery from the Sports Binge. You guys have a blessed night.